Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And today in this video we're going to be learning about arrays and all those different data types that are remaining to be done. So in the previous video we've studied about objects, and now we're going to be studying about arrays. So let's start. So what are arrays? Arrays are basically the combination of different data types. So they are the combination of different data types. What am I talking about? Different combination of data types. Isn't object a different combination of data types? Yes, it is. Yes, it is the combination of different data types, but it actually stores the data in forms of element, different data types, and stores them in the form of. What am I talking about? You may be a little bit confused, or if you've understood, then that is good. Arrays are basically lists, and inside of the list you have different kinds of element. I'll give an example right now. So const, which is I'm gonna go for ARR, and the arrays always start with big brackets or big parentheses, whatever you want to call it. And after you hit the big bracket, and you just need to type in your data. So let's say Safi, and I'll go with Arun. Let's go with Aditya, and we can go with 20, 23, and 21. Okay, 21, and we can go with any data types we want. This is string, this is number, and let's go with an object. So name is going to be code, enthusiastic, and we need to give a comma, name, and we need to go for job, and it's going to be programming. So now we've given this. Now this is an array. So if we console.log this out, ARR, and let's go to this one and go live. Now there's a pop-up screen. I'll just simply go ahead and inspect this one, and in the console what do we see? In the console it says resource 404 not found. What is this? Okay, never mind, just ignore this one. And here we can see that we've printed an array. It says it is an array and it has 7 elements in it. Its length is 7. That means it has 7 elements. Now how do we count these elements? In JavaScript or in any programming language, the counting of an array doesn't start with 1. They are called indexes. The counting are known as indexes. So let me go ahead and write it. Indexes. These are called index. Now what are index? So index are basically the count starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So that means even if we start counting from 1, this is not going to be 1 in computer language. This is going to be 1 because the counting starts from 0. So it's going to be 0 and then 1, and here it's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, it's not 4, it's going to be 5, and this last one is going to be 6. Now this is not going to be 6, this is not going to be 7, this whole thing is going to be 6 because that is an data. That is also a data, so it's going to be giving individual indexes to the types of data. So if I save this, and now if I go ahead and access these indexes, how do I do that? How do I access this index? I want to print Safi over here. So what do? I simply go ahead and say console.log array, and you need to open your big bracket and you need to define the index. So index of Safi is 0, so I'll write 0, and yep, we can see that Safi has been printed over here. So now we know how to print the indexes, but how can we print this over here? How can we print the name from this object? So what is the index of the object? So the index of the object is 6. I'll console.log that one, and we can see that there is an object. So now this is a normal object, and the normal way to call some key from an object is just simply going to go ahead and say dot and name. And if I go ahead and console log that one, we can see that code enthusiastic has been printed. Now this actually means array big bracket 6 means that grab the sixth element inside of the array, the sixth index of the array, and inside of that, whatever value you find, if there is name, yes, grab it and console log. So we're going to console.log arr and 6 at the sixth index, we have our job as well. So yep, if we go ahead and see, we can see programming and coding, a code enthusiastic has been printed. THUSIASTIC, enthusiastic, yeah. Never mind if the spelling is wrong, I don't really know much about it. So yep, that is how we can print out the indexes. So that is all about arrays, and now we need to go ahead and learn about booleans. What are booleans? Booleans are either true or false. You've actually studied in your primary classes as well. If the statement is true or false, just write it down. So that is the same in the computer world as well. In the JavaScript, that is the same. So these are basically true or false values. These are values. Now values always go inside of an variable. So we can create a variable named bool, and let me go with true. So now if I console console.log the value of bool, what do you think that we'll get? We will get true. Now this true is a boolean. It is not kind of string data, it is actually a boolean. So you can see that there's a purple color to it. So now we are going to learn about operators here inside of booleans. So what are operators? Operators are those keywords in JavaScript, those characters in JavaScript which actually define some certain conditions. So what are conditions? Conditions can be like if it is Saturday, I'm going to be playing games. If it is Monday, then I'm going to be going to school, blah blah blah. Okay, that was operators do. So operators are basically acting upon the condition. They actually make the condition. So how do they make the condition? I'll write the operators to you. So it is going to be arithmetic operators. So arithmetic operators are basically plus, minus, equals to, multiplication, division, etc. Okay, these are the arithmetic operators. We've used them before, and now we have this logical operators. So it's greater than or equals to, less than or equals to, or greater than and less than. So I'm going to be explaining them, just don't worry about it. And we have double equals to and triple equals to as well. So what do they do? Arithmetic operators, I'm not going to be showing this because you know that we can use those. But what are these kind of operators? So these operators, let me go ahead and just make a variable const number1 is equals to 5, const number2 is equals to 6. Now I'm going to go ahead and compare these two values using this comparison operators. These are known as comparison operators. Now how can we compare these two values? So we're going to go for const compared value is equals to, now this compared value, let's go ahead and say that the compared value is simply going to go for number 1 is greater than number 2. Do you think it is true that 5 is greater than 6? No, it is not. So what do we get if we console.log this compared value? We will get a false value over here because that is not true. But what if I set the value of number 5 to be 6 as well, and see, it is going to say false because number 1 is not greater than number 2. But what if I say greater than or equals to? It can be greater or either equals to. So it is going to go ahead and say true because this number is greater. Now this number is not greater, but it fulfills the condition of equals to. So even if I set the number to 8, it is simply going to go ahead and say true. So these are the comparison operators. Now comparison operators are basically used while making some certain applications wherever. Okay, let's take an example that you created a website for learning how to drive. Now to learn how to drive, you just need to be above 18, right? So you're going to take an input from the user, suppose that is number 1, and you're going to compare the number 1 with the number 2, which is 18. A person can drive when he or she is 18. Now this is number 1 is 8, and we are going to compare this value. So we're going to simply go ahead and say if number 1 is greater than or equals to number 2, then what do we want? We can simply state a condition here. If this statement is true over here, if this returns true, then simply console log that the person can drive. That is it. You can make like that. So now we have some another operators as well. We have logical operators here. So logical operators are basically those actually defining logics. So what are logics over here? So I'll just go ahead and simply explain you about that. Now I'm going to go ahead and comment out the console logging methods here. Now in this operators, what do we see over here? So the logical operators, what do they do? So I'll just go ahead and say const user name is equals to 6801 and const password is equals to bro is cool. Now if I go ahead and say const comparison is equals to, now what do? We have comparison over here. So now how do we compare these two values? I want to know that if the username is equals to the password or not. If the username is matching the password, then I would simply go ahead and say you cannot set the password to be the same of your username. So I'll simply use the logical operators over here. Logical operators. So I'll simply go ahead and say username double equals to password. And what can we say is we can simply go ahead and say console.log. Okay, log comparison. What do we see? We can see the value is obviously false because the value of username is not equal to the value of password. So this is what they do. This is what is about logical operators. So now what do we know about the triple equals to? So I'll set up another condition. I'll just simply comment this out, and I'm going to say, okay, never mind, I'll not do that. I'll simply go ahead and say const num. Now let's go with const a is equals to 15 and b is equals to okay, in the string 15. But now if I go inside of the comparison and if I say if a is equals to b, now here's a catch. Okay, this is a number and this is a string, and a string cannot be equals to number. But what do we see in the console? We can see that it is true because it is going to go ahead and convert this into string, or this into number at the end, or either it is going to convert this into string and it is going to return the value of true. So that's why we don't use double equals to when we are comparing some kind of number to a string. Okay, to do that we're simply going to use triple equals to, and we can see that the value is false because a string cannot be equals to a number. So that is basically it about the double and triple operators. Logical and comparison operators. So what are undefined? So undefined is really easy. Undefined is just simply that is not being defined. So I'm just gonna say let undef and just simply leave it without any kind of declaration to it. So if I console.log undef, what do we see? We can see that the value of undef is undefined. Yep, that is what undefined is all about, and we're gonna go ahead and move to the null. Null is basically nothing. Okay, const nothing is equals to null, and if I console.log. If I console.log nothing, we can simply get the value null. So yep, that is all about the data types in JavaScript. If you want to learn about more data types, you can simply connect us through Discord, or if you don't want to learn, that is good, because these are all the things that we need in JavaScript. Nothing more is required while working with JavaScript, okay? These are all the basic data types. Now we're simply going to create a project now, okay? We're going to learn about some if and else operators. So we're going to learn about comparison. We're going to learn about conditions. Conditions. What are conditions? Now suppose your teacher has given you an assignment. Now the teacher sets up a condition for you that if you don't submit this project within the given time, then your project is not going to be accepted. See, that is, if you have given your project to the teacher in the respective time, then you can simply go ahead and get good marks. But else, if you haven't submitted, then you won't get good grades. So that is all about conditions. There are if and else statement everywhere in our life. Conditions are what make up our life. So in programming, conditions are important stuff, okay? So how can we make conditions in JavaScript? So we can make conditions using this one. So now let me go ahead and say const, let's go for user age is equals to, let's say the user age is 12, and I'll say if it is going to start with if condition, and it is going to go ahead and give a parentheses, and I have to type a condition. If user age is greater than or equals to 18. Now we're simply going to go ahead and console.log you can drive. Now you can drive. Now we have else statement. If this condition is not true, if the condition is not fulfilled, what can we say? We can console.log you cannot drive. Now if I go and say, it'll say you cannot drive because user age is 12 and 12 is not greater than or equals to 18. But what if this user was above 18? We can see that you can drive over here. So this is what condition can really do, okay? So yep, conditions are all about that. Conditions are about if and else statement. Now what if there are more than two conditions? What if if user is less than 40? So I want to make a program, okay? I want to make a program over here. So write a program. I'm just not going to write it over here. I'm just going to tell you we are going to write a program where it takes a input from the user asking their age, and if their age is above 18 or equals to 18, then that means the user is now able to drive. But if the user's age is if the user age is above 40, that means the retirement age is 40. So if the user age is greater than 40, then we can simply say that you cannot drive. That is it. We can say that you cannot drive. So how do we do that, okay? How do we do that? We have three conditions over here. So the first thing that we can simply go ahead and say is there is something called else if. There's a statement called else if, but if should be greater. The hierarchy should be maintained by letting if to be here. So now the first thing that we are going to check is that if the user age is greater than 40 or not. If the user age is greater than or equals to 40, then we can simply go ahead and console.log we can say that you are too old to drive and you are too young to drive. Never mind, my typing is really bad. Okay, you're too young to drive. Now what does this do? So it is simply gonna go ahead and read this one. So it is going to read this one. It is going to check the user age. It is going to check if the user age is 40 or not. So now this is returning false because the user's age is not greater than 14. So that means it is going to skip this false statement. It is going to go ahead and execute this one. Now it is going to see, oh, else if user age is greater than 18. Oh, yes, it is. This statement is true. That means whenever this statement is true, the program gets executed and this line doesn't get executed. This line just gets removed out of the program. I guess you understood what I am saying. It is going to say you can drive. See? That is how we can work. So first, it is going to check this, and if it is false, it is going to skip it. It's like in hierarchy. If that is true, then it is simply going to execute this and execute none of that. Okay, if I simply go ahead and say 40, so now what do we see? It is going to check if the user age is greater than 40 or not, and it is simply going to execute this one and not execute all of this. You'll see what I'm talking about. See? You are, okay, else is over here. You are too old to drive. That is it. We've created a program. Now I'll let you go ahead and make your own program. So I'm gonna go ahead and write a project for you. Test, it's a test, okay? So write a program where you take an input from the user and check if the user is greater or is 18, greater or equals to 18, and then check if the user is above 40 or not. You can simply go ahead and return you are too old to drive and you are too young to drive, etc. Okay, so write a program where you take an info from the user and check if the user is greater or equals to 18, and check if the user is above 40 or not, and tell them if they can drive or not. Okay, you can set up your statement, but I'll go ahead and actually inform you about inputs. So user inputs, how can we take user inputs in JavaScript? So take user inputs in JavaScript, we can simply go ahead and say const input is equals to prompt. Now in the prompt I'll say enter your age. So now if I, oh never mind, console.log input, I'm consoling out the input. Now this is going to ask me my age. If I write in 65, okay, let me refresh this one. If I write 65, it is going to go ahead and print 65, but this 65 looks odd because this is a string and this should not be a string. A number is always coming up with a purple color. How is this not coming in purple color? Because whenever we are taking an input from the user, it is going to come as in the form of string. See, it is saying that this is a string. Now what can we do to make it a number? So to make it a number, we're going to set up another value, and we're simply going to go for const. We're going to go for age is equals to parse int. There's a function called parse int in JavaScript which actually lets you to change string into a number. So the string is input here, and if we go ahead and console log the type of age, we can say that the type of, okay, let me go for 65, and the type of age is a number. See, now we are simply going to go ahead and print age. It is going to go ahead and say that it is a number. So that is how we can actually take info from the user, and that is how we can make conditions. So this test is given to you and you need to complete it, and if you have completed, you can simply go ahead and write the solutions in the comment section below. I'll see you in the next video. If you have any kind of problems, you can join our Discord server and you can take help from us. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, take care everyone, and bye-bye.